Welcome to the second episode of The Patriotic Immigrant. I am Ricardo Diaz and I am your patriotic immigrant. Um, I'm going to play a video and then I'm going to go into the subject a little bit after that. This is not being rehearsed at all. There's no prepared speech. I didn't take any notes. I just did a little bit of a kind of dive into the topic. The topic today is child exploitation. Um, and let's get into it. I saw a couple of videos floating online of Disney employees being arrested for sex trafficking or not sexual related crimes. And I will go into that in a second. Let me just play the video. I would say enjoy, but do not enjoy this video. This is not good. This is horrible, and as a Christian man, I acknowledge that we have had faults in the past, but I believe we work towards a better future. So, right, you can acknowledge mistakes of the past, right? But we can also appreciate strides made to correct it, right? To correct it going forward, because you can't correct the past. You can only correct things going forward. And I'm referring to things such as age of consent, and I'm referring to things of what's considered an adult, right? What's considered an adult in America, 18 years old. Even though psychologists and other brain, specialists will say that an adult brain isn't fully developed, their frontal lobe isn't fully developed until they're in their mid-20s, right? So biologically, you're still a child until you're in your 20s. Why? Because what's a child is someone that's developing into an adult. If your brain isn't fully developed, you're not fully an adult. Now that is a literal biological definition of what an adult is. I agree that 18 is an adult. I agree 18 is an adult. Just a little bit of backstory. I was divorced and single for many, many years. During the time, I did dating, online dating. I would meet people sometimes outside of online dating. And in the dating apps, anyone that knows, you can filter. You can filter through, a variety of things. One of the things that I always filtered, I'm 38 years old now. At the time I was, maybe 30 to 35 when I was doing, the online dating stuff. I recall filtering the age and always putting 24, 25 to like around 32, 33. I'm just not comfortable with anyone under like 25 years old. Yeah, I'm just not comfortable with anyone under 25 years old. Not I don't believe it's illegal to be with an 18, 19, 20 year old. I just personally find it uncomfortable. I think they're still children. And I just never been comfortable with it. Not never, because I was a child at one point. As an adult, I'm just not comfortable with it. My wife now, I met her when she was 29. She's 31 now. So yeah, and I was fine with that. Again, this is a personal choice. I do believe if you're a young man in your mid-20s, I think 18, 19, 20 is fine. Again, and there's a plethora of other things that go into making that decision. I never believe it's okay for anyone under 18 to be with an adult. But that's a fairly recent act, right? Like most states passed that law in the 70s. Age of consent was like 16, and some states like Alabama, I believe, age of consent was like 12 until the 1970s, and they also allowed first cousin marriage up until the 70s, maybe early 80s. I'll look that up now, but yeah, it's, and again, like I first said, I acknowledge we've made mistakes, right? I acknowledge the Church of Christianity, the Church of Christ, For years, the age of consent was when the woman had the child had when the female the girl had her first period. Once she had her period, she was now a woman, and she was allowed to be married or married off. Right? It wasn't her decision. It wasn't consensual. Again, is that what we do now? No. So what does that mean? That means that we acknowledge that was a mistake, or not a mistake. That was a shortcoming of our lack of knowledge. Right? We evolve, we grow, we learn, and then the beauty of humans is we teach. Right? So we learned that it was wrong to do it, and then we taught the next generation that it's wrong, and now we all agreed that it's wrong. That being said, some nations around the world don't have that, and I'll get into that after this video. Just watch the video real quick. And again, do not enjoy this. This is not fun, but it's a necessary conversation.
The Disney cruise ship child trafficking ring is so much deeper than you think. If you haven't heard, a Disney cruise ship was raided in a massive child exploitation sting, and 10 Disney employees were arrested. But it is so much deeper than that. Let's start in 2022. Disney employees and former judge among 108 arrested in human trafficking sting. That must be a coincidence though, right? 2021, parents sue Disney Cruise Line for $20 million over alleged S.A. of 3-year-old daughter. 2019, Disney cruise worker charged with 13-year-old girl. 2014, Disney Cruise Line fails to promptly report S.A. of 11-year-old girl. This has happened so many times that when the news reports arrests, they just say another Disney Cruise Line worker arrested. But there's no way that the same company with ties to Epstein could possibly be running some kind of child trafficking ring, right? That has to just be a crazy coincidence, right? I don't know. I could be wrong, but unfortunately, I don't think I am.
All right, so that video says a lot of interesting things. Now, initially, when I saved this video, I was gonna put a short video together, a short podcast, kind of just reacting to it, and then just digging into Disney and these corporations, and then just the most surface level dive into those allegations. I was like, oh, this is just not biased news. This is this is what the media does. They take one story and they report on civil suits as if it were civil allegations, as if it were facts, right? They take testimony as fact, and we all know people are liars. People that want money are liars. People that sue habitually are con artists and liars. That's what they all have in common. And it sucks when it's related to child exploitation or sexual exploitations, because then it paints this narrative of all or nothing, and we know we live in the gray. It's not all or nothing, right? So one of the cases, and I'll link to it because I did search it up, that this video brought up, which by the way, I understand this is the TikTok video, it's not a reputable news source, but it has, hundreds of thousands of views, and it's being circulated, and no one's looking this shit up. People are, they're taking a quick dump and they're looking at TikTok videos and they're like, oh yeah, Disney, only employs sexual predators. And the truth is, Disney does employ sexual predators, but not exclusively. Disney employs people, and people sometimes suck. That's the truth. There was an allegation of 108, the insinuation was 108 Disney employees were arrested for sexual crimes related to a child. The truth of that is there was a huge like a sexual sex operation sting amongst deputies and other agencies, probably federal agencies, working within Central Florida. And there was a huge sting, and they arrested a whole bunch of people. Out of 108 arrested over a period of time, 4 of those were, technically 3, but let's call them 4. 4 were Disney employees that were arrested. One of them was an employee, I guess just like someone that brings you drinks or whatever, like a waiter, at Disney's Polynesian Resort in Lake Buena Vista. Anyone that knows the Central Florida area, and that's kind of like outside of Orlando, where the Disney resorts are. It's a beautiful resort. That area of Central Florida is full of degenerates and scum and piece of shit people. And Disney's the largest employer in that area. I lived in Central Florida. I actually lived an hour north of Orlando, and the only job that I could find an hour north was commuting to Disney World to work. I actually worked as a cook in Disney in Hollywood Studios, which back then was MGM Studios, or maybe they transitioned. Not the point. The point being, 4 people were arrested. This guy was arrested and prosecuted for sharing text messages and nude videos of himself with a 14-year-old who was really a detective undercover. And that is horrible for a child to say, I'm 14, you're a 27-year-old man, and you're like, yeah, take a look at my, my penis. Take a look at this. Send me this. Send me that. Right? It was a Hispanic guy, Xavier Fernandez. I didn't look up his ethnicity, but if I'm guessing in Central Florida, it's either going to be Puerto Rican or Cuban or Mexican. That's just primarily the primary Hispanics living in South Florida, or Florida. Cuban, Puerto Rican, Orlando has a huge Puerto Rican community, and Mexicans are everywhere. I can say that I'm Cuban and I live here, so it's not stereotyping; it's just a fact. And the other 3 were one was like an IT guy, 1 or 2 were like IT guys, and the third one was something else, some sort of other, whatever, Disney employee. But they were all arrested for soliciting prostitution. Not anything associated with the minor. I'm not saying that's not a crime. I'm saying that morally, prostitution is legal in a lot of places, right? Like famously in Nevada, they realize, hey, they're gonna do it. Let's regulate it, tax it, and benefit from it, right? That money exclusively goes towards education. And they all have to get documentation. They all have to get blood work done. And it's been thriving there, and it's been helping that region. So it's illegal only from a legal standpoint. I am very pro prostitution. I believe if an adult wants to make the decision to use their body however they see fit, then they agree to it. They agree to it, right? Like for a long time, I'm happily married, so I don't believe that now. But for a long time, I would conflate casual dating with prostitution. I would say this thing. I was like, casual dating is just prostitution with extra steps. I pay money for a date, and then I pay money for a second date. And then I'm like, okay, well, this person isn't my forever home. This person is like a foster home, right? I'm gonna be here for a little bit, for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, and then you have some fun, and then ultimately you're like, yeah, it went exactly where I knew that it was going, which is nowhere, and then it's over. But if both people knew that it had a shelf life, and it was only an agreement of, I'm lonely right now, or I want company, or I want corporal pleasures, right? Sex. and this person is good at it, but they're shitty at everything else. They're not what I want. Even if one person knows it and doesn't tell the other one, how is that different than prostitution? Except, there's no exchange of money for that exclusive service, and it's unwritten, right? So in that aspect, it's nothing like prostitution, but prostitution is something that I agree should be legalized, regulated, and taxed, and that money should be exclusively for education and drug rehabilitation, and wherever it's being legalized in, right? They should do annual blood work. They should pay taxes like waitresses pay taxes. They should be allowed business licenses. They should be allowed to have security cameras. They should be allowed to have, security personnel, right? Just like strip clubs do. Just like, just like bars have, right? Like how is drinking alcohol and then getting in your car legal, but going to a hotel room, paying a woman, using a condom, and having sex illegal? It makes no sense. And so many people are arrested for it every year, and we're putting non-violent people in prison, and that doesn't make any sense. So yes, so in short, 4 people were arrested. 1 was a piece of shit, and 3 were horny bastards that just didn't want to put up with the relationship, or were stepping out, or whatever, right? They solicited prostitution, and they don't allege, the allegations weren't, or the arrest didn't say that it was for minors. If it's a minor, totally against it. I think the minimum age for prostitution should be 21, not 18. 21-year-old woman can do with her body what she wants, right? But I think it should be 21. No one's gonna listen to me. No one's gonna legalize it, right? That's a super unpopular opinion amongst conservatives. So I don't see anyone pushing that. I'm surprised Democrats don't push it, but okay. Right, and I'm gonna link what I read so that people see that I pulled it up, off of my Gemini AI. The other cases with the cruise line that just happened in May. That one was, sorry, let me back up. There was an allegation of a 3-year-old being sexually assaulted by Disney employees. In 2021, there was like a lawsuit or whatever. That is not accurate. So I looked up that case as well, because I thought it was horrible that a 3-year-old was assaulted. What happened was, in the child area, or the allegation is in the lawsuit, it didn't have criminal charges, right? So that's weird, because if you sexually assault a minor, then there should be criminal charges. But there were no criminal charges, there was only a civil suit. So that's kind of where like the first red flag should be for most people, right? Like if I'm suing someone for punching me in the face, but I didn't call the cops and have them arrested, then how do I know someone else just didn't punch you in the face and now you're trying to just collect money, right? Like, why weren't the police called? Why wasn't there an immediate investigation done, right? Anyway, so the allegation was a couple left their 3-year-old at like the daycare center, and then 3 other children, 11 and 12-year-olds, held the girl down and touched her inappropriately. And that was the allegation. If true, fucking horrible. However, 11, 12, and 13-year-olds aren't Disney employees, right? So the suit against Disney World was failure to provide adequate protection for the child. There was a video evidence that shows children going into an area, doesn't show anything, and that was the basis of the lawsuit. It was thrown out because that's not proof of anything. If that were true, then I hope they press charges on the minors. that did that, right? 11, 12, and I have a 14-year-old son. And when he was 12, he knew exactly what he was doing at all times. So holding down a 3-year-old and assaulting them, that a 12-year-old understands what they did. You know, I can argue that a 6 or 7-year-old doesn't know what they're doing, or not. I can argue. Someone can argue. Um, you know, with things with children, right? You as a parent, it's hard to be objective. Um, I don't want to be objective. I don't. I get angry, right? Like I can't imagine somebody violating my child. Um, Anyone that has a child, I highly recommend you put him in a combat sport. My son has been in jiu-jitsu for about 3 years. Um, he actively looks for reasons to go to jiu-jitsu. He asks me to drop him off early so he can help with the children's class at 6. He asks me to go on Saturdays. He calls me and he says, "Hey, you know, you're going?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm going. I'm tired. I'm sleepy. I have homework. I have this. My mom is bitching at me because of X, Y, Z, but I'm going." And I'm like, "Yeah, yes, good, good." So you know, it's helped his confidence. He's still very timid and shy in certain things, but he's confident in his ability because he tests his body daily, and I think that's good, right? Most people, you know, I think everyone agrees that it's good. Um, the daily grind of it is what's shitty. Every day I have to go drive across town, pick him up, drop him off to jiu-jitsu, and then sometimes I have to go back an hour later. I don't sit there for the whole class, and then you know, and then drop him off back at his home, and it's like an hour endeavor, and that's not including the hour he's in the class. You know, sometimes I just wait in the parking lot, you know, or I go inside for a little bit, but usually just stretching, and then they start, you know, it's not an MMA fight. It's training. It's kids training. Well, he's not a kid. He's in an adult class. But yeah. Anyway, things with children. It's hard as a parent, but I need to be able to compartmentalize that and say, okay, this is horrible, but this isn't on Disney. Um, and as a parent who vacations with this child, who takes your child on a Disney cruise and puts them in a daycare? Uh, Why would you spend money to be away from your kid on a Disney cruise? Are you a Disney parent? Then you should be arrested. There shouldn't be a Disney parent. There shouldn't be Disney adults. It doesn't make any sense to me. You know, I had a lady I worked with who was one of these weird Disney adults who, you know, wore like Mickey ears to work and shit. She was a big, obese lesbian woman, which, come on, typical. Nice lady, very nice lady. We didn't agree on much. She was a very nice lady. She was never mean or rude to me, but this one time we had a conversation and she was like, "Disney World should have like a day where only adults go." And I went, "Yeah, that'd be great. Like a weekday, like a Wednesday, where the park is closed to children. Anyone under 18, it should be closed. But then the other 6 days, no adult should be able to go on without escorting minors, right? So no Disney adults the other 6 days a week." And she was like, "No, that's not fair." Yeah, it is. It's a children's park. It's a children's park. I have to wait 2 hours with my 3-year-old because there's 400 obese, you know, sexually confused 30-year-olds with cats and cat ears in line in front of me. You're making it bad for the parents. You're ruining it for everyone else because you want to, what? Sit in, it's a small world after all, right? You want to go on Aladdin? You want to be the Disney princess? What do you, I am on a tangent and I'm sorry. Drink some coffee. This is my wife's mug, Lilo and Stitch. I broke some of mine. I think she broke them. I broke them because I don't know how to wash dishes like a fucking human, right? I'm Wolverine in there with my claws jabbing coffee cups. Uh, where was I? The so the 108 arrested Disney employees that the video alleged was highly exaggerated. It was one that was terrible. Um, the allegation of the 3-year-old being assaulted, that one was an allegation without any evidence. Now, just because there's no evidence doesn't mean it didn't happen, but it also doesn't make Disney liable in my opinion. It makes the actors liable, right? Like the person who committed the crime. Like, if I invite 2 family members over and they get into a fist fight in my home and one of them kills the other one, they're the responsible parties. You two got into a fight because I'm the homeowner. I'm liable because they were in my home. That doesn't make any sense. This is America. You can sue whoever for whatever you want, I guess. I mean, that case was thrown out. They didn't win. They didn't have an argument. I feel for those parents. I feel horrible for that child, and I hope the children that committed the acts were prosecuted, and I hope they were prosecuted as adults. Yes, an 11, 12, and 13-year-old. Put them in an adult prison. Let them be raped for the rest of their lives. I don't give a shit. A 12-year-old that's holding down and raping a 3-year-old is not gonna grow up to be a fucking leader in America or a respectable neighbor, right? That's not who they're growing up to be. And if there's a 1% chance that there are and a 99% chance that they're not, fuck it. Don't let them out of prison. It is our responsibility, and the parent should also be prosecuted. Anyone that teaches, or maybe not, I don't know. That sucks. That sucks for everyone. It sucks more for the victim. Yeah. So while there's empathy and sympathy for everyone involved, mostly going towards the victim and the family of the victim. They shouldn't have sued Disney. They should have sued the parents of the 3 children. I hope they did. And I hope they won. And I hope those families are going to be paying restitution, all 3 of those families, for the rest of their lives towards that child, for therapy, for psychology, for college, pay for that child's prom dress. Fuck you, pay. Yeah. And then the last case was the one from that just happened in May of 2026. That one, it was a sting at some port in Central Florida, or not Central Florida, on the coast or whatever, wherever those cruise lines are ported at. And it was several cruise lines. I don't know how many people were arrested, but it said 28, and then it was reduced to 27. 27 Disney employees, cruise line workers, were caught with child pornography on their devices, and they were like sharing it amongst each other. 26 of the 27 were Philippines. Sorry, had an alert. Were Filipinos, and then one was from Indonesia. They were all immediately fired. Some of the Philippines is a weird place, right? The world is a weird place, right? We talked about that. The U.S. has been very guilty of making mistakes in our lifetime. Not my lifetime. I'm younger, but you older cats, you people who were around in the 70s, going, yeah, 13-year-olds should marry their cousins in Alabama, and no one saw a problem with that until like 1976 or whatever, right? What is wrong with y'all? But we learned, and now that's illegal. And we know that a child is a child, and we know that you shouldn't be sleeping with your first cousins or any of your cousins if you could avoid it, avoid it. Um, in the Philippines, the age of consent was raised from 12 to 16 in 2022. That means up until a few years ago, a 12-year-old can legally have sex with an adult, with a 40-year-old man. And 2022, it was raised to 16. So the legal age of consent in the Philippines is 16. What I am speculating is that these people, by the way, none of them were tried, right? Because none of them were U.S. citizens. They were all citizens of the Philippines. They were all just deported, and they no longer have entry back into this country. The reason that is because of Filipino laws. The Philippines has an age of consent of 16. The U.S. does not. So and child pornography doesn't really have strict laws in the Philippines. So if the U.S. government tells the Filipino government, put these men in jail and use your resources to feed and house and clothe and bathe these men for a crime in America that's not a crime in the Philippines, it's not going to go over very well. So they were just supported until they can't come back to America. None of them feel like they're guilty of a crime because in their country it is not a crime. They're in our country, and you respect the countries of the place you're at, right? You're a visitor. So again, does Disney hire sexual abusers? Yes. But that's because Disney hires people. You want to get rid of that? You want to avoid hiring sexual abusers, sexual whatever, deviants? Convert everything to AI and avoid human employees, right? Well, that's going to ruin the world, but it's going to prevent sexual assault because a robot that's programmed, a large language model is programmed with the parameters saying anyone under the age of 18 is a minor and shouldn't be sexualized, then those are the parameters and they're sticking to it, right? Humans, you tell a 30-year-old guy who hasn't had sex in 6 years that a 16-year-old that looked at him, so in his general direction and he took it as flirting, he said, well, she's old enough, right? Because those parameters don't exist in humans. Or they do exist in humans, but we go out of the lines as a race. So that's the way to get rid of it. I do believe that Disney is responsible for horrible things, and intentional things, right? I don't believe hiring, cruise line workers. The only thing they're guilty of is hiring, these foreign nationals to work for $11-12 an hour. That's the only thing they're guilty of. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. They should be hiring American employees and paying them livable wages. So I hope this ruins their reputation a bit more and people stop going to these parks as much. I think the best thing for children is to take them to national parks, let them learn about patriotism, let them learn about, take them to like war reenactment. Let them know the sacrifice that our forefathers endured for our nation, not $250 per person to go into Disney World, to then pay $16 for soda, to stand in a line for 120 minutes to go on an attraction that's just basically VR headsets and a little wobbly chair. My son recently went to Universal. He went the school program. He was there I think they were there for like 6 hours. He went on 3 rides in 6 hours. The wait times were about 2 hours per ride. And we're telling people that this is a magical place. No, it's not. The quality has gone down, the pricing has gone up, and if we continue to pay, they'll continue to do this to us. So once we stop going to these parks and these places and these amusement things where we're not being prioritized, money is, then we need to stop prioritizing them. And that is exclusively with the parks and the rides and their things and their amusement things. I like a lot of the Disney movies, less and less recently, but I do like the Marvel movies, and I do like some of the Star Wars things. Um, yeah, Disney is a big conglomerate, and they're full of people that are just trying to keep their jobs regardless of the consequences, or maybe they don't know that there's going to be consequences, right? Maybe they think, well, if we can hire 10 Filipinos for every one American, and you know, and then provide better customer service because we have more bodies. But now these 10 people all have different cultures, different backgrounds that don't align with our country. Um, so ultimately, this whole podcast could be summed up wrongly, but somewhat accurately, that we need to reintroduce integration into America. Segregation. Uh, our values as a nation don't align with other nations. Um, I'm an immigrant. I came to this country, and the first thing my family did was assimilate. We said these are the laws, right? We're going to obey these laws, and these laws protect us, and anyone that doesn't follow them shouldn't be allowed to stay. Um, yeah, I believe that. So I believe assimilation is the key to the success of this nation. All these countries that come here and want us to uh, appreciate their morals and their values and their laws are wrong, and they should be punished when they're here and they violate our laws. And furthermore, after they're punished, right, and not just in prison with 3 meals a day, work camps. And then after that, deport them. Yeah. If you're not willing to assimilate to the American way of life, right, uh, then you shouldn't be in this nation. There's 360 something countries of the world. Go to one of their countries. Don't come to this one. We want people that will assimilate. We want people that will prosper. We want people to blend their culture with our identity. I'm a Cuban man, but I'm an American. I'm an American first. Y yo hablo español, and I love my Cuban culture, and I love my Cuban food, and I like some of the Cuban music, but I'm an American first. So I blended my culture with my adoptive country's laws, regulations, and the Cuban community thrives here. We love it. We love what this nation represents. And I think there's a lot of bad actors around the world that come here and they don't love America. They just know they can prosper here. You want to prosper, but then not assimilate. No. Don't come.